You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Hristodoulou.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou, and as we do every single Tuesday, I'm coming at you guys with my 32-team power rankings, and I have got to say, you get to a point in the season where you think you know, and then week 10 happens and you realize, okay, maybe you don't really know. A lot of just crazy results for a lot of games, coming down to some really tight scores, some really unexpected winners. Last night being one of them with the Commanders taking down the Eagles 32-21. So we're going to dive right in, break down these rankings, and see where everyone stands through 10 weeks of the season. So make sure to hit that like button, subscribe button, and comment down below. What am I getting right? What am I getting wrong? Where would you rank some of these teams and everything else in between? So diving right in, we'll start with the bottom four teams here, 32-29. We begin with the Texans still at 32, the Raiders still at 31, and a couple of new teams in the Jaguars at 30, and then the Broncos at 29. So Texans, they are where they are. It has been quite a while since we've even seen them win a game, and it just feels like this is a team working their way towards one of the top three picks in this year's draft class. Raiders, speechless is all I've got to say. I picked the Raiders to beat the Colts. I did not think that the Jeff Saturday-led Colts would be able to get the job done. I thought that, if you're Josh McDaniels, this was a game that you have to win, and they could not get the job done. And I no words is all I really have to say about that. No words. I literally cannot believe that Josh McDaniels and that Raiders team could not beat a Colts team, considering the state that they've been in the last I'd say month or so. Then at number 30, we have the Jaguars. They drop a handful of spots here. And then the Broncos at 29 as well. Two teams that just continue to lose in bad spots and are struggling as well. The Broncos, at this point in the season, they are what they are. A team that just can't really get the ball moving on offense, but like a fantastic defense. And it's really unfortunate to see that, because this is the second year now where the Broncos have had a legitimate championship caliber defense, in my opinion. And it's just kind of going to waste. Whereas the Jaguars, they're working through a rebuild. They are where they are. You kind of expect this of them. You have a new head coaching group and everything like that. You've seen some flashes here and there, and you hope that there'll be progression as they go through in the years to come. But the Broncos, man, this has been quite a letdown for this team, I would say. Next group of four, we have the Saints at 28, the Panthers at 27, we're looking at the Colts at 26, and then the Bears at 25. So the Saints dropping a big number here, 8 spots altogether. This is a team that has a really solid defense and an offense that is just very up and down, but they've also dealt with a ton of injuries. It feels like week in and week out, you're just looking at a 10-person long injury report, and they just can't seem to get healthy, and the offense has really kind of hit a snag, I would say, and I don't really see anything getting better. It sounds like they're still rolling with Andy Dalton, despite the fact that the offense has just not really looked too great, but we'll see where the Saints go from here. Not really too high on them anymore, and again, this is a team that I had as like a dark horse number 7 playoffs team, so it's really unfortunate to me to see the team where they are right now. Panthers, they move up 3 spots. They get themselves a big win over the Falcons. For a team that is, a lot of people thought were tanking just a few weeks ago, they've been highly competitive, and aside from getting the brakes beaten off of them just a couple weeks ago, but they have been competitive in some spots. They really took it to the Falcons this week and made the Falcons look like a more of a bottom feeder team than a team that's kind of like in the thick for a number 7 seed spot in the playoffs right now in the NFC. So hats off to them. You get a good win. Colts, moving up 3 spots, like I said, cannot believe that the Jeff Saturday-led Colts were able to take down the Raiders. That really speaks to the issues that the Raiders are having right now, whereas the Colts, a talented roster, just a team that has not been able to really put it together. Matt Ryan under center this week looked pretty solid, so I will say that. I'll be interested to follow the Colts going through the back half of the season and see how Jeff Saturday does things. I'm not going to sit here and be like, the Colts are back, Jeff Saturday is going to save the team, because for all we know, it could just be that the Raiders are really that bad. But I will sit here and say that I'm intrigued with the Colts coming out victors in week 1 under Jeff, or not week 1, in their week 1 of Jeff Saturday. And then the Bears falling 3 spots here. I really thought that they'd be able to take down the Lions. Like I said, I made a bunch of really bad picks this week. I was doing really well for the last 5 or 6 weeks, and they talk about bottoming out in week number 10 here. Really thought they could get the job done against the Lions, but ultimately, just you talk about throwing a game away with penalties and turnovers. This is a game that the Bears, I really thought at one point were going to win this game. Like, they were up and they were crushing the Lions, but you just kind of let the Lions claw back in and ultimately steal the victory. Tough loss for the Bears. They're a team that is finding themselves on offense, but the defense is kind of up and down right now. Now, moving into the next four, we have the Lions at 24, the Steelers at 23, Browns at 22, and then the Rams are sitting at 21. The Lions moving up a handful of spots here. A lot of movement going on here, so it makes some teams' jumps seem a little bit bigger than they should be, but the Lions move up 3 spots with their win over the Bears. And, a team that is competitive, but not quite where you'd want them to be in their second year under head coach Dan Campbell. Maybe, if they get a new quarterback, maybe that changes things for them. But, the offense hasn't really been the problem. It ultimately really is the defense over there. They got to get some more pieces. They did a good job addressing it in this year's draft, but I think they need to double down going into this year's offseason. And I would be interested to see how this team fares if, they're able to bring in a big name or maybe two this offseason and then find some premier talent, whether it's edge rushing, secondary. You name it, the Lions could really use just about any of it to really fortify this defense. Steelers at 23, I would say, even though they were home, in my opinion, I kind of saw it as an upset. I really thought the Saints defense would give Kenny Pickett and company fits, but right now the Steelers, they're winning some games here and there. They are what they are, a team with a young quarterback trying to find themselves. Mike Tomlin is doing a hell of a job coaching the team. They just got TJ Watt back, so I'm sure that'll change things for them defensively. We'll just kind of have to, see this one out with the Steelers and kind of figure out where they end up. I don't know if I see them making a push for a playoff spot, but could they wind up winning a few more games than they have throughout the this first half of the season so far, especially with TJ Watt coming back, being the anchor of the defense that he is? I could see the Steelers maybe rattling off a few wins here and there that people don't expect, but hats off to them. You get a W and, one to kind of rejuvenate a team a little bit that's kind of lost its way the last, handful of weeks without TJ Watt in the fold, because I think we've really learned the last handful of weeks with him being gone just how important he is, not only to that defense, but just to that team. He is a leader and a force on that Steelers team. And I would say at this point right now, the face of that Steelers team, not just that defense, but that Steelers team. Browns are sitting at 22, another loss for them. I thought that if they could maybe trudge their way to 5-6 losses or so, that maybe they'd have a shot when Deshaun Watson comes back, because he is coming back here in about 3 weeks. But right now, after watching them get their doors blown off by the Dolphins, not really too sure. I have them a little bit higher amongst the worser teams of the leagues, I guess you could say, because I feel like Deshaun Watson does give them somewhat of a chance. But if they don't win the next 2 out of their 3 games, I don't really see them being in a position to really make a playoff push this year. It's really starting to feel like the Browns next year are going to be where you really have to look forward to seeing this team in full. But they are where they are right now. Rams at 21, you take a loss to the Cardinals, and, I've got to say, this is not where I expected this Rams team to be. Offensive line is porous. They can't really move the football. At this point right now, any hopes or shot of landing Odell Beckham, I think, are way out the door. I'm assuming he wants to go to a contender, so I don't expect him to be going to LA, at least on the Rams side of things. Maybe he surprises and goes to the Chargers, but I don't really think so. Ultimately, they are what they are. They can't protect the quarterback. They can't really move the football a ton. You're losing to a Colt McCoy, Trace McSorley-led Cardinals team. It is what it is. It speaks for itself. Cooper Kupp dealing with an ankle injury now, too. Thankfully, it's not anything too crazy. It was feared to be a little bit scary early on, but sounds like they're fine for now with how Cooper Kupp is doing. But, man, not where I expected this Rams team to be at all. The Packers making a big move up to number 20, Falcons at number 19, Cardinals at number 18, and then the Chargers at number 17. So the Packers moving up 8 spots here. I will admit that I probably dropped them a little bit too low last week, but I was just kind of, you lose to the Lions 15-9. You just kind of think, well, this is it. The Packers team is completely tanked. But Christian Watson having his welcome to the NFL type of game. And I think this is going to be his kind of coming out party. Maybe he won't be as dominant as he was this past week, but I think him and Rodgers have finally kind of found their stride, and that's going to be huge for him and for this team going forward. The Packers are like a fringe playoff team right now. They're going to need to rattle off a serious amount of wins to be able to push to maybe land that number 6 or 7 seed. But I will say the Packers, they have Aaron Rodgers. crazier things have happened in the NFL. This has been one of the wildest seasons. So would it be fitting to see, a team like the Packers that's been struggling all year long to find it in the back half of the season and sneak their way into the playoffs? Would be pretty fun to watch. I don't really know if that's the case, if it's going to happen, but offense that has not really shown much signs of life in the passing game came to life this week against a really good Cowboys defense that kind of went missing in action. Falcons drop a couple of spots here due to their loss against the Panthers. A little bit surprised on that one. I know it's tough to beat the same team twice in a year, but ultimately I did not expect, like I said, a Panthers team that kind of looked like they were tanking a few weeks ago, be able to pull out a victory here, and the Falcons just kind of making a slide. Offense didn't look great. Maybe Desmond Ridder time. Don't really know. We'll have to see. Cardinals moving up 5 spots here, mainly because just a handful of teams slipped below them. I feel like the Cardinals made a big jump here for beating the Rams, but it's not necessarily about that, because when I look at 17 through 32, there is not a massive gap between all these teams. I feel like this is one of the most condensed seasons in terms of just teams fighting for spots. It is such a close league this year, and I think it's been a really fun one to watch. So while the Cardinals move up 5 spots here, it's mainly because teams are slipping and falling around them, but hats off to them for getting a win, and I would say a much-needed win to keep whatever slivers of playoff hopes you may have alive. I don't really know if this Cardinals team is built to win like that, but you get a win against the defending Super Bowl champions. Good win at that. And at that point, you were behind the 8 ball big time with Colt McCoy, and then Trace McSorley had to come in. You deserve some credit where credit is due. Chargers at number 17 to wrap up this group of 4 here, and this is a team they're so down in the rut with injuries. It's kind of insane. They just lost a couple more guys this week after their loss, and a team that has so much talent but is hobbling through the season. And I as much as I like the Chargers on paper, I can't really buy into them when you're missing your star wide receivers what feels like every single week. And when one of them comes back, the other one is out. They've got to get healthy if they want to make a push for the playoffs. And they're right now on the fringe for the AFC at the bottom there. I believe they're the either number 8 or number 9 team. They've got to get healthy. I feel like if they can get healthy, once Joey Bosa comes back, maybe things start to look a little bit better for them defensively. But my goodness, this is a Chargers team that just looks so good on paper, but watching them play, they look like they're playing hurt. Now working into the top half of the league, at number 16, massive upset victory for them. Hats off to the Washington Commanders. Big W for them. Much deserved to be on this top half of the league. Taylor Heineke has made Ron Rivera's job difficult at this point. I would say just bench Carson Wentz and leave it at that. I've not really ever been much of a believer in Carson Wentz, and I really think that Taylor Heineke is the guy that this team will rally around to maybe push for a playoff spot as the number 6 or 7 seed, maybe even potentially upsetting, who knows, slipping their way in higher than that. But I've got to say, it's fun to watch a team like this that's very scrappy and an underdog being able to pull out a dominant win, I guess you could say, because, they had 40 minutes of possession time. They literally doubled what the Eagles had. They had deployed a really good game plan, keeping the ball away from them, and this is a team that doesn't even have Chase Young right now. He's on his way back, but he's going to be back soon. He's working his way back off the IR right now. He's already been activated, so we'll see. This team could start to get really good in the back half of this season, and they really seem to rally around Taylor Heineke over there. So maybe a little bit of a magical story brewing in the NFC East right now. I don't know, but some exciting stuff. Buccaneers move up to 15 with a big win over the Seahawks there in Germany. Talk about what was a near disaster for the Buccaneers. You watched that interception with the Leonard Fournette throw to Tom Brady. That would have been a complete laughing stock of a video being played all week long, I would say, had the Buccaneers not won that game. But fortunately they do, and it can be laughed off, no big deal, we still won. But I can only imagine what would be said about that whole scenario right there had the Buccaneers not come out victors. But you get a big win. Patriots have a productive bye week, not playing, but moving up 1 spot here because the team's moving around them. The 49ers, big victory over the Chargers, a much needed one at that. This is a playoff team, I would say, like a 7-6-5 team. I don't know if they'll end up winning their division, but I will say this. I do like the 49ers defense, and they have some really good skill talent. Watching Jimmy Garoppolo play is painstaking to me, but the 49ers look solid right now, and they're pretty healthy at the moment as well. Next group of 4, we have the Bengals sitting at number 12, the Titans at 11, Jets at 10, and then the Seahawks at number 9. So the Bengals stay put, didn't play this week. They are where they are. The Titans slipping a spot here despite their victory over the Broncos. I would have liked to see a little bit more offensive output from them. The running game kind of disappeared against the Broncos this week, but ultimately Ryan Tannehill coming back, 255 yards passing, and he also had a couple of touchdowns as well, played a good, clean game for them. Obviously, this offense works a lot better when Tannehill is under center, while Malik Willis was an interesting thing to watch. It's clear that he's still really raw and he has a lot of work to do. But, I mean, right now, Ryan Tannehill feels like the right guy for the system. And, he comes in, running game's not working, gets a solid game out of him. I mean, Titans they're going to probably win the AFC South if I'm being completely upfront. And, one of the most well-coached teams in the NFL, one of the most well-coached teams, if not the most well-coached team in the NFL. Jets are sitting at number 10 here. They move up a spot. Productive bye week for them because of people moving around. So hats off to the Jets. Congrats, you move up a spot there. And the Seahawks dropping a couple of spots here out of the top 8 into number 9. I've got to say, man, talk about shooting yourself in the foot with turnovers, and just you could see the frustration on Geno Smith because this was a game that really felt like the Seahawks kind of lost more than the Buccaneers won. And I really expected to see more points from a team that has just been kind of high flying all season long. I don't know if it's just because of where they were playing and whatever. I mean, that's playing in London is one thing. And you have a team from the East Coast going to London, that's a long time. But they're coming from all the way on the West Coast. So that is like an extra 4 or 5 hours within that flight. And listen, I don't know if maybe that had something to do with it, but the offense just seemed very off. And they were making mistakes and things that we have not really seen from the Seahawks team. So I'm not too worried about them. All things considered, they're still 6-4. They're still looking like a really good team. Not really too worried. You lose to a Tom Brady-led Buccaneers that seems to be kind of resurging a little bit here. So we'll see what happens with all that, but I don't really knock the Seahawks too much for this loss. You lose to Brady overseas, and it was a close game at that. It's not like you got your, doors blown off or anything. Not a bad loss for the Seahawks. Next group of 4, and this is where things get pretty insane because we have a lot of movement in this top 8. We're looking at the Cowboys at number 8, the Giants at number 7, we have the Ravens at number 6, and then the Buffalo Bills slipping out of the top 4 at number 5. So let's dive into this. Cowboys, I have them dropping 3 spots here. Very shocked to see this defense struggle the way they did against the Packers, considering the Packers couldn't even put up more than 10 points against the Lions just last week. I really thought that this was kind of a matchup made in hell for the Packers because the Cowboys have just been so good at getting to the quarterback. And while the Packers' offensive line hasn't been awful, they have not necessarily been the greatest, I guess you could say, but they've been starting to get healthy and better. So for them to kind of neutralize the rush that, the Cowboys have been famous for this season, and for the defense to kind of let the passing game really open up, a little bit surprising to me. I'm not necessarily too worried about the Cowboys. I still think they're a playoff team. Dak Prescott's got to clean up some of the turnovers, and, I'm really shocked that they lost this game. I really thought they were going to come in and get that big upset in Lambeau. I really did. I've been pretty high on the Cowboys for the last last month, I would say. I've been very impressed with that defense. That's really the biggest reason why I have them so high, is because I really believe in that defense. And the offense looked really good in this game. But ultimately, just a little bit of a shocking result, I would say, for the Cowboys. Giants, productive, did a good job. You get a win over the Texans, a win you needed to get here. You get the job done. You move up a couple of spots because the Seahawks and Cowboys drop down as well. Ravens at number 6. Bye week, didn't do anything. They stand where they stand. Bills dropping 3 spots here. Number 5. Listen, I like Buffalo. They have one of the best defenses in the league. But there is a recurring theme right now, and everyone's talking about it. It might be a little bit overblown, but I will say I'm not too worried about the whole Josh Allen turnovers in the red zone thing. It feels like, maybe he's trying a little too hard to make things happen. Somebody needs to just let him know to kind of take that weight off your shoulders. Josh Allen is Josh Allen, but let's get a little more balance, and let's also take some points. That first red zone turnover, you put Josh Allen in that situation to carry the team like that, and, unfortunately, you get the result of the pick to Patrick Peterson. Just kick the field goal. Because if you kick the field goal in the fourth quarter, when you're driving to kick that field goal to tie the game, You're driving to kick that field goal to win the game. Just take the points. Interesting play call there. I know that the Vikings have a high-powered offense, but like you were rolling. Just kick the field goal. And then moving into the top 4, we have the Eagles finally taken down from the number 1 spot. I know a lot of you have been questioning me about having the Eagles at number 1 for a while now. We'll get into that in a second. The Dolphins at number 3, the Chiefs at number 2, and then the Vikings claiming the throne of the NFL. Listen, for the Eagles at number 4, we've been seeing some cracks in the armor here and there, and I think it was finally pierced by the Commanders. There is an issue in the second half with this offense where they just completely slow down to a screeching halt, especially in the fourth quarter. They have got to figure that out. Defense also, surprisingly, not as aggressive as we've seen it. Weren't really blitzing too much early on. They started to do so, but it was a little too late by the time they got around to doing it. I respect the Eagles 4-man front. I think they have one of the better groups in the league, but you definitely need to design some things more. And I understand you want to trust your 4-man and, rush 4 and drop 7 whenever you can, but let's just see a little more like flavor from the defense there. But man, the offense really needs to figure out that second half stuff. They can start out so hot and then they start ripping points on the board, and then teams just kind of like slowly claw their way back in, and games get closer, it gets out of hand, and you ultimately find yourself behind in the second half like they did yesterday, and they can't claw their way back in. They got to figure out that second half stuff, and the time of possession, man, 40 minutes to 20 minutes essentially is what we were looking at there. I don't know what the exact number was. You got to figure that out. That was not a good showing by the Eagles. And, for all the people that have been doubting them after watching that game, all right, fair enough. I mean, that was a very jarring loss, I would say. I really expected the Eagles to come away with a victory last night and was very surprised to wake up and finish watching the replay because I had to go to bed pretty early. But to wake up and finish that game and watch the rest of it, very surprised at the end result of that by the Eagles. Dolphins sitting at number 3. They rocket up 5 spots here. At this point, the Dolphins are 7-0 with Tua starting and finishing a game. This offense does not seem like it's letting up. Tua to Jalen Waddle and to Tyreek Hill is one of the most ludicrous things I've ever seen on offense. Couple that with the fact that they bring in Jeff Wilson at the trade deadline, and now you have one of the best group of running backs in the NFL just pounding defenses. This Dolphins team is something else. Defense looks pretty good. You have a fantastic offense, and that is a recipe for success. If you can even just get away with good defense in today's NFL, and you have an offense that can put up points the way they are right now over there in Miami, I know a lot of people are, I think like the concern is always, can these warm weather teams manage well in cold weather stadiums and whatnot during the playoffs? Well, if Miami's playing like this, and they hold the number 2 or number 1 seed when things are all said and done, people are coming to Miami to play. I'm not even too worried about that. And if the Dolphins are playing in 70-degree weather come January for their playoffs, hell, man, I mean, Dolphins are looking really, really good right now, and it's been fun to watch this team. The Chiefs move up a spot. Good on them. You really took down the Jaguars 27-17. I mean, at this point, I feel like the MVP race is between Patrick Mahomes and Tua. That's been starting to get whispered around, and I'm really starting to think that is the case. I know Josh Allen is still a really good QB and whatnot, but this is now another game where he's kind of thrown things away, and at this point, it feels like it's either Tua or it's Patrick Mahomes. I really like Jalen Hurts as well. He's like a strong number 3 candidate, especially if the Eagles can, right their wrongs from this past week. But right now, it's Tua and Patrick Mahomes. And I mean, I really want to see the Dolphins play the Chiefs. So that's something that I want to see happen because I have the Dolphins at 3 and the Chiefs at 2. Am I like 100% sold on that and would die on a hill about it? Absolutely not. That is a game that I would pay a lot of money to go see. And the Vikings currently sitting at number 1. I don't really think there is a team hotter in the NFL right now than the Minnesota Vikings. You want to talk about going into a hostile environment with the Buffalo Bills, doing what they do best, putting up points on the board, and being able to capitalize on mistakes and put a game away. That Justin Jefferson catch, so I didn't even actually get to watch the game live. I had to watch it on replay, and someone had mentioned that there was a fantastic catch in the game to me, but I didn't because I wasn't paying attention. I was busy. And so when I sit down and I'm watching the game, I see Stephon Diggs make that first catch, the one-handed grab, and I was like, oh man, yeah, that was an awesome catch, man. Talk about just going up there and snagging it. And then I saw the Justin Jefferson catch, and I was like, oh my God, man. You want to talk about a trade working out for both teams. That is probably one of the very few in the NFL where neither team got fleeced and both teams ended up better in the end. Justin Jefferson, man, is the best receiver in the NFL right now. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hammer that right at home. He is the best guy in the NFL right now at the receiver position. Hands down, I don't even think it's really a question at this point. The dude is a freak of nature. But that is my power rankings for week number 11 of the NFL. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I appreciate you all for watching. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.